Before I get to this week's waiver wire pickups, I want to tell you about some players I'm not going to talk about on this video. Matt Wallner, Yuri Perez, Colton Cowser. I'm not going to talk about these injured players, not because I don't think they're worth picking up, but because I already told you who to pick up and who to stash on IL. Separate waiver wire video. So if you haven't seen it, I got my top 10 injured players to grab now before they get activated. Didn't talk about Parker Meadows. I really think it could be any moment now that we see him back. Again, we never really know. I'll probably give him a little bit more time to rehab, but I think this should be your priority. I wouldn't wait to stash. I would just grab Parker Meadows if you can. Not a sure thing here. No, this isn't a guy that has been proven, a young player, but the upside is there. What we've seen glimpses of, especially the second half of last year, hit 296. Gives you some power, gives you some speed, and hey, look at that. The Tigers are actually pretty good, and not just in terms of pitching staff, but their offense as well. But things haven't been perfect for them, especially in the outfield. A lot of injuries, a lot of guys have come and gone, and like the Javi Baez center field thing is nice. It was fun for a while, but like Parker Meadows belongs there. I think it's going to be his job. And if he hits as soon as he comes back, we could see him maybe even at the top of that lineup. All right, now to a guy who's actually hitting, and he won't stop hitting, and people will not pick him up because he's on the White Sox. But Miguel Vargas, remember, he was a Dodger and he couldn't quite break through, had some injury history, and then, of course, just tough to crack that lineup. Got moved to Chicago last year, didn't take it so well. And look, he didn't really start this season very well either, but all of a sudden it's like he's figured it out, or he's at least taken the right approach. I'll tell you what I mean in a second, but let's just look at the numbers here. He started out in April, as I said, pretty much as cold as possible. 102 plate appearances in the first month of the season. He hit 217, just one homer and 7 RBIs. And yet in May, exact same amount, 102 plate appearances, 7 home runs, 17 RBIs, and he hit 275. So look, the season-long stats don't look great, but that's because he's done basically all his damage in the last couple of weeks. And what has happened here? Well, this is one of those fun new StatCast tools. You can look at his ideal attack angle. That's actually what it's called. It's a thing. He's 5th best in ideal attack angle. That means he's doing the right thing at the plate. I'm not going to get into all the specifications because I'm not going to pretend I understand it all either. But as far as his distance from the plate, the angle he takes, all of that stuff, he's doing a good job. And it's working because he's getting on base. So sure, still a terrible offense, but look, guy is getting you base hits. He's showing power. There was some concern for Vargas that he was never really going to live up to his prospect pedigree, that this was going to wind up being kind of like a quad A player, someone who was too good to be in the minors, but not good enough to actually produce in the majors. And lo and behold, now he's actually producing in the majors. All right, there's an obvious one here. I don't understand why Gavin Sheets is also not being picked up. I talked about him a couple of weeks ago, feels like. He's doing even better than he was a couple of weeks ago, and people are still slow to pick him up. Now, remember, he's not on the White Sox anymore, right? That was last year. He's on the Padres, a great offense, and he's one of their best hitters. Just this past week alone, Gavin Sheets has 5 homers and 11 RBIs. That means on the season, got 11 home runs. He's already surpassed last 2 years his home run total in about a third as many at-bats as last season, and he's definitely on pace to hit his career high pretty soon. This is not just a hot streak. Sheets has been pretty much hot all season long. He's posting one of the best hard hit rates in the majors, the 94th percentile. He slots in at first base, he slots in at outfield, and he slots in almost every single day in the Padres lineup. Don't let him just sit there on the waiver wire any longer. Now, it's less likely that you'll find TJ Friedl of the Reds, but he's still less than half owned across Yahoo leagues, and of course, far less than that on ESPN. So TJ Friedl has had a good fantasy season in the recent past. Last year wasn't so great for him, but now he's getting back to it. It's interesting, though, he's doing it a little bit of a different way. Friedl is a guy who had shown that blend of power and speed, but sort of at the sacrifice of batting average. This year, though, what he's doing is just getting on base. But, he's really not flexing much power. Only 3 homers on the season. He does have 8 stolen bases. But what he's doing now is, again, just racking up those hits. He's hitting 481 just over the past week, several multi-hit games. And the fact that he's leading off for the Reds, he's scoring runs, getting 7 runs scored just last week. So right now, He's helping you in batting average, runs scored, a little bit of speed, like I said. Just don't expect power numbers. You know what? I think that's a good trade off. I will take it. And so Friedel, we know he's got the goods. While he's hot, go ahead and pick him up. Now, I'm not going to push quite as hard for Caleb Durbin as a waiver wire pickup, but certainly worth an add, especially if you need one of those utility players that can slot at second base, third base, shortstop. He does it in real life, and of course, he can do it in fantasy. Now, the Brewers have tended to have, let's say, not so much patience with their infielders. They move guys all around, especially at third base. Durbin might be the one that sticks. He is a top 25, but not top 10 prospect who came over from the Yankees. And so Durbin has a little bit of everything, not a lot of power, some speed, but the fact that he's on the Brewers means he will steal bases just because they run like crazy. And so now that he's finally hitting, he can help you a little bit in each category, power aside. Now, on the season, his batting average is 210. Definitely not good, but just think of the fact that 10 days ago, he was hitting 169, so he's definitely brought it up. In the past 10-day stretch, he's 11 for 36, hitting over 300, with 8 RBIs and 3 steals. So not a sky-high ceiling here, but again, this is a pretty deep league streaming option that you can slot at multiple positions, so there's definitely value there. And then in Houston, remember all the hype around rookie Cam Smith, who made the opening day roster. He was dropped in a lot of leagues because after a decent start to his major league career, just really hadn't shown enough. But it looks like he might be figuring it out. He's gone on a little bit of a hot streak, a hitting streak actually. He's hit safely in 10 of the last 11 games. He's actually made some physical adjustments in the box in his approach. So even though on the season his ideal attack angle is below league average, it has improved over the last couple of weeks. His bat speed is elite. It's among the best in the majors. And so he's figuring it out. Now, he's not squaring the ball up as much as he should. That's something that you can make an adjustment to. And again, with experience, remember, this very young player, he will start to figure it out. What he does need to figure out is how to hit sliders. That has been his weakness, which is just so very rookie of him. Once he learns to hit the slider, once he starts to get the sweet spot in the bat a little bit more often, we could see that power take off. That's what we're waiting for. So he's finally getting base hits after base hits, but he hasn't gone deep since April 18th. We need some power here, right? So I think we know Cam has the power. It's just a matter of tapping into it. If you can remain patient here, don't feel like you need to start him on a daily basis, although he is helping with the batting average. Once Jordan Alvarez comes back and this offense starts to kind of gel, Christian Walker slowly figuring it out. Isaac Paredes seems to have finally found his footing in Houston. I do see better things for Cam Smith going forward. Now, on the pitching front, as far as starters go, I mean, honestly, just not a lot of starters, I would say you can just add and keep. The best thing to do at this point of the season really is to continue to stream and make those smart decisions. This is why we always talk to start streamers on Sunday night. But I do have a couple of potential keepers, and still in Houston here. I guess we got to look at Lance McCullers now, right? So this last start, McCullers struck out 12 batters, but I mean, to me, more impressive is the fact he actually lasted 6 innings. I mean, look, we know McCullers, right? We already know. I mean, he's been around forever, but he hasn't been around in a while because he's so many injuries. I mean, we haven't seen him pitch over 50 innings in a season since 2021. So this is definitely the type of pitcher I'm like, let me see him do something like this, and now he's done something like this. So again, you know the risks. I don't have to spell it out for you. But if we're getting anything close to the best version of McCullers who can actually stay out there for more than 5 innings at a time, yeah, we know he's got the strikeout stuff. That's never been a question. So, hey, if the arm is right, go ahead and add him and let's see how it goes from here. I got a little under the radar play here at starting pitcher. I'm quietly in on Slade Cecconi. Now, Cecconi is a guy who was with the Diamondbacks last year, now the Guardians. And if you look at anything that he's done in the recent past, you'll turn away quickly because last year, across 77 innings pitched, which included 13 starts, he had a very evil 6.66 ERA and a 1.42 whip to go along with it. So why would you be in on a guy like this? Well, a couple of things have changed here. First of all, obviously the organization with Cleveland instead of Arizona. That in and of itself shouldn't inspire you for any reason. Arizona's a pretty good team. But he's done some work over the offseason. He's added a cutter and a sinker that he's starting to mix in. Look, Saccone has some talent, right? This is a guy who was productive in college, productive in the minors. He just couldn't figure it out last year. But when he does, I think he could put it together, and we're starting to see the potential. Again, he's not there yet necessarily, but he could be. His very first start of this year was decent, right? 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, 5 hits, 8 strikeouts, and no walks. Well, then his last start, only his second of the season, only gave up 1 run on 6 innings. Again, 6 strikeouts to only 2 walks. Saccone's always had an insanely low walk rate, and you know I love that. But now all of a sudden, he's starting to have a pretty high strikeout rate. That's a recipe for success. Now, I wasn't going to talk about Saccone because his next start was scheduled to be against the Dodgers, but thankfully he had a little tweak or something, and because of that his start was pushed back. So now instead he gets the Angels. It's a lot better. So I actually might, if I have room somewhere and I need a streamer, pick him up for his next start against the Halos. While there might not be too many great starting options on the waiver wire, there's still closers, and I've got to circle back to a couple. Camilo Doval is actually a closer again, finally. Yes, it's been officially announced. Doval's got that job back, and he absolutely deserves it because he's been great this year. And Ryan Walker, even though they keep trotting him out there to get saves, still keeps giving up runs. So finally, Doval will be getting the saves that he deserves. And you can't tell me he doesn't deserve it. A 116 ERA, 0.73 whip, and his expected ERA is in the 98th percentile, expected batting average, 94th percentile. It's all great. And finally, we're going to see him do what he should have been doing all along and be the guy in the ninth inning. Let's just hope he doesn't blow it. And for the second week in a row, let me just remind you that the new closer for the Cubs is available in vast majority of fantasy leagues. He's only 11% rostered apparently on Yahoo and even less on ESPN. Daniel Palencia. Get to know the name. So far, so great. A 1.83 ERA, a 0.81 whip, and just in the past 7 games, he's got 4 saves. He's doing what both Porter Hodge and Ryan Presley couldn't do, get those saves without getting lit up. Obviously, no guarantee that this lasts. At some point he might get hit, but look, you need saves. He's on one of the best teams in baseball. Just get him. And if Palencia isn't available because you're in a really tough competitive league, as you should be, maybe Robert Garcia is there, and maybe he's the closer for the Rangers as of right now. And I know I've been saying I just would rather avoid this bullpen altogether, but I did also say that the guy who I think is the best reliever that they have is Robert Garcia. They just didn't want to give him those save opportunities, and now they have. But again, no promises here. Short-term speculative closer. He does have 3 saves on the season. A couple of them just came in this past week. He's a dependable reliever, at least he has been. He doesn't get hit hard. I know that because he's got a hard hit rate that's among the best in the league, 95th percentile. And strikeout stuff is good enough. So again, you need saves. Robert Garcia, maybe he'll stick. If you're in a deep league, you got an IL spot open, or you want some of these players that are going to be coming back very soon, or you know what, you can grab them before everybody else does a couple weeks from now. I talked about injured players that you want to stash now. Check it out.